of the day to you, America, and all of our cities that are logged into the Ester Davis Show on Friday night. We're going to listen to a little bit of jazz after the show by one of our favorite artists. But tonight we have a totally wonderful surprise for you, because we are going to talk about the new president of the United States, and we're going to talk about what the steps are that it's going to take to get us there. Because we're all excited right now about the wonderful, insightful current president of the United States, Mr. Joe Biden, and his vision to announce and make it happen for an African-American woman to become president. So we're all in a spin right now, and I'm one of those totally excited people. So I had to go get some help, because we want to keep up this time with all of the steps that it's going to take to get Ms. Kamala Harris into that White House, into our White House. And a lot of times we overlook the steps. We don't know how they all operate and how they all come together. And I'm one of those people. So I had to go find somebody who is a total expert, who has a ready answer, someone with experience that can tell me and you what it's going to take, what are the steps necessary. So guess who we have, the one and only, a lady I have admired for years from a distance. This is the magnificent, outstanding Miss Kathy Nealy. Are you there? How are you?
Yes, I am, Mrs. Ester Davis. How are you, my dear?
I am doing great for a Friday night. And I'm so excited that we can have you and your expertise here to guide us through these next steps. But I have to ask you this. I've got so many questions for you, Kathy. What do you think about Joe Biden making this unselfish decision? What do you think about that?
I think that if you've known Joe Biden through the years, because he's been an elected official and a servant of the people for 50 years. And he has always been gracious enough. He's run for president a couple of times. And then, but he was so gracious to, step aside and not be bitter when he didn't win. And he was the vice president when Barack Obama became our president.
Right.
At the same time, he looked at the future of our country, and he chose a young lady who was also black and of Indian heritage to be the first vice president woman. And then, so it didn't surprise me that he would do that, because he puts country first. And
wow, yes, he does.
I'm just excited that he did that. And because I think that she's brought a whole new set of experience.
Yeah, we got a whole new light here with her being on that stage. It's amazing. Have you ever seen anything come together like this, though?
Well, it's very organic. And
very organic.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? I'll tell you something. So many people, God answers prayers, and I truly believe that. And I believe that we have asked God. I know I have. We understand being predestined, and we understand that God knew in His plan that today we would be here having this discussion. So I said to the Lord, so since you already know, then I'm just going to have to let you do you. and look at what he's answered our prayers.
And we weren't prepared for that. We weren't ready for that. I know that I had the thought in my head. By the way, I'm Ester Davis. This is the Ester Davis Friday Night Show. And my guest is a very exciting woman in all over this United States. And she is Kathy Nealy. I call her a power broker and wherever she is, because she will create the power and she'll make sure that you understand the power, and you will be happy with her final decision. Kathy Nealy is educating us. Kathy Nealy is letting us know what are our next steps to the White House. We've got a long way to go. So I just wanted to just put that plug in again, and she's telling us about the next steps. Stay tuned. Call somebody. It's Esther Davis. Now, back to Kathy. Hello there.
And hello, Esther, and thank you for having me on tonight, because today is an exciting day. When we talk about the next steps, it was less than 2 weeks ago. It'll be 2 weeks Sunday that President Biden nominated, stepped aside and nominated Vice President Kamala Harris.
It put us all in a tailspin.
To be the nominee. There were some things that were already in play of deadlines that we had to meet anyway, because of from the primaries. As an example, we had an August 7th. Everybody talks about Ohio and August the 7th, but let me just talk a little bit about how we get here.
Okay.
I didn't. What did you say? Am I okay?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. So we had an unusual case in Ohio, and I'll actually just read so that people won't say, well, she said, da, 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 da. We're going to get it right.
Okay.
In recent presidential cycles, Ohio has passed consensus legislation to postpone the 90-day deadline to account for conventions held by both parties. But in 2024, the Ohio Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, indicated that he would not and could not certify the Democratic nominees to the ballot unless the state's deadline was changed by the state's legislature by early May. When the state legislature missed that deadline, Secretary LaRose explained that the only remaining option was emergency legislation, which can take effect immediately but requires a 2/3 supermajority of the legislature.
Okay.
The legislature instead chose to enact regular legislation. Here we go with the trick, which takes effect only after 90 days to push its ballot deadline to early September. And Ohio Governor Mike DeWine signed that bill into law on June the 2nd. The August 7th deadline will therefore be the place on August 7th. If it is missed, Secretary LaRose previously claimed that he was duty-bound to begin preparing ballots without Democratic nominees on that day.
Ooh, wow.
So that's why we were going to have to do a virtual vote anyway, had Biden been on the ballot, because had Biden been the presumptive nominee, because we need to deal with the Ohio deadline.
So you're bringing us into focus. Yes, keep going, because that is very important. See, most of us did not know that. I was unaware that we had a deadline, and the deadline was basically due to the ballots being printed with certain names on them.
Right.
Okay.
And see, also there are other states. See, like the first state, Washington's, their deadline is August the 20th. Well, as you know, our convention doesn't start until the 19th, right?
Right.
So we have to deal with Washington, we have to deal with Montana and Oklahoma, because they follow. Then you got California, because you got to also deal with this electoral college. You know.
Okay, let's back up a little bit. Let me back up just a little. Hold your point, please, because you have mentioned what we had to do. Now, what we are you talking about at this point?
The Democratic National Committee.
Okay.
The Democratic National Committee.
And you are a national delegate.
Yes, I'm a national delegate. But you also have you have 3 standing committees.
Okay.
When it comes to a convention, you have the credentials, you have platform, and then you have rules. So
all right.
the Rules Committee was already in play and looking at how we move to get to deal so that we are in play for the August 7th deadline. Because as you know, when the Republicans realized, okay, that we're going to try to make a move and deal with the August 7th deadline, they came back and said, oh, you can turn it in late. It'll be okay. But hey, the Republicans will have all types of tricks for everybody.
But you have to be knowledgeable of the system and how it really works. Okay. As a national delegate, what did you do? What is a national delegate?
The national delegates, we vote on the presidential nominee. So let's talk about what has happened with President Biden stepping aside.
Right. Okay.
So the first thing that we had to do was, a call was made out from the Democratic National Convention to all the state directors to see if they were on board with Vice President Kamala Harris being nominated. Then each state, we had a delegate here in Texas, because I'm here in Texas, right?
Right.
So Texas has a total of 233 delegates going to the convention.
To the convention.
That is correct. To represent the entire state of Texas. We have the third largest delegation in the country of delegates. So we first had to first pledge that we would be in support of Kamala Harris being the nominee. So the first we had to do was we had to vote to pledge our delegates to her.
Okay.
Then what we had to do is after everybody said yes for that around the country, all the states, then the next step would be to nominate her. So we had to fill out a nomination petition for her name to be.
All of this went on before July 24th, before the president officially made the announcement.
No, this has just happened over the past 2 weeks.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So as of, let's see. So starting last Friday, we had to nominate. We had ballots that were emailed to us. So we voted for her name to be placed on the ballot. So that's what I did.
Wow.
So then the step after that, so starting yesterday, and let me also back up. If there was anyone else who wanted to run for president, they had from last Saturday, to Tuesday the 30th to submit their name as well as 300 delegates representing 6 different states. No one, the only person was Vice President Kamala Harris.
The only person's name that surfaced was Kamala Harris.
That is correct.
This is Ester Davis, and I'm talking to Kathy Nealy, and we are talking, if you're just tuning in, we are talking about the next steps and some of the previous steps that put us in this place, in this space where we are right now. So I'm talking to Kathy Nealy, a power broker in the Democratic Party, and she is bringing us up to date on it because we don't want you to miss anything this time with this important election. So we're listening to Kathy Nealy and by the way, she is a national delegate. She's one of 233 delegates that will be going to Chicago on August 19th. Okay. Thank you, madam.
Absolutely. So where are we today? So on yesterday, August the 1st, we actually started the virtual voting where we cast our ballot on behalf of Kamala D. Harris. So received my ballot by email yesterday morning about 8:29. I voted for her, sent that document back. You save it in PDF. You send it back, and then they send you a confirmation that they've been received. It's been received and recorded. That takes about 3 hours. So we started that process yesterday. We have until Monday, August the 5th, for all ballots to be in. But as many of you noticed on the news today, it was announced that she had reached the minimum threshold to be nominated is 2,350 votes, and she received that minimum today, which was super exciting because we had a national delegate call this morning at 11:45 Central
And what was that
Time.
about?
That call was to let us know where we were with the process.
Okay.
And while we were on the call, when we first started out on the call, it was pretty. Everybody was like, "Why are we doing this call? You know, you have so many calls why are we doing this?" So when we started the call and they went over to the war room, we started out the call with 2,302 ballots that had been returned. Then after a few more minutes, there was 22 more ballots that came in, which took the number to 2324. And after that, then Jamie Harris, the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, came on. And while he was talking to us about the process and for everybody to continue to get their ballots in, then we hit the number of 2,350. So it became official while we were on the call. And then we got a call from Vice President Kamala Harris and she thanked all of us. And wanted us.
Wow. What did she say, Kathy? What did she say?
You know, the Vice President, she's just a humble individual. And she talked about, you know, moving forward and we're not going back and that we need everybody working. It's going to be a tough election and it's going to be close. But we just have to keep our heads focused on what the prize is, go to work. We'll be in Chicago. It's very exciting. She over this weekend will be making her she will be vetting different and she didn't talk about that, but we talked about that separately. But so she just thanked everybody for the work that they've done, for the support that they have given, for their votes, you know, and she'll see us in, you know, Chicago.
We'll see you in Chicago.
Absolutely.
On one of our earlier calls, I got to mention this to you. On one of our earlier calls, you sort of bought into me and made it clear. I was wondering, why was there such a rush for her to name a vice president? I mean, every day on the news, you're hearing the same thing. Well, she's got to make a decision, and who's it going to be? That's been just a paramount issue. But when I talked to you earlier, there was a reason for that. Explain that to us, please.
Well, number one, people, you generally make your first, he has to be nominated. Then she has to make the decision on who her vice president is, because the same thing is, that name will also need to be on the ballot. You know what I mean? Both names have to appear. So once again, we're still dealing with this August the 7th deadline.
And we are roughly 4 days away from that. So today is the 3rd.
But today is the 2nd.
Oh, yeah, it sure is. So she will make that
decision probably Monday.
Monday, okay.
She probably will make that decision Monday on the 5th. And the reason why I'm saying that is that she will be doing a four-day tour in 4 states next week. She's going to start out in Philadelphia on Tuesday.
So do you get an advance notice of her schedule each day as a national delegate?
No.
No, okay. But we all get that part at the same time.
Yeah. Well,
usually on the television.
we might know a little, maybe a few minutes before you. So you're important, Esther. So you get your information pretty quickly.
We're talking and having fun this evening, exciting fun with Kathy Nealy, because we want to make sure we have all of the steps, and we don't want to miss any, be fully, totally informed about what's going to go on with this race, as with all of the other presidential elections that we've had over the last 200 years. Okay, the delegate thing, that's 233 from the state of Texas. That's one of the largest delegations. Who outnumbers us? Probably California, and who else? Delegates, national delegates.
Hey, I know we're number 3.
We're number 3? Ooh.
We're the third largest out of all the states. So we know California's one. And is that Florida? Maybe Florida.
That sounds like it could be.
Yeah.
And we're catching up on what our next step is. Okay, now we have the running mate by Tuesday, and then everything has to be in on the 7th. What happens next? Campaigning, getting ready for the national convention.
Well, you have a combination. You have a combination because the good news about this campaign, you have those individuals who are getting ready to go to Chicago, but the work still has to be done in each one of these states.
When you say work, now what are we talking about? Work, what is that?
Phone call. People are knocking doors. They're making phone calls. There's a lot of, over the past, I was on a call earlier in the week. We have signed up over 360,000 volunteers around the country. So
amazing.
Yeah, it really is. As well as the money that's been raised in 1 week, it was over $200 million, and of which 60% of those are women, and a good 90% of that money is from small donations.
90%.
So that's pretty huge. And
that isn't that a parallel to the Obama years, because he raised a huge percentage of his beginning funding.
Absolutely. And it will continue, but also, and I would say for the battleground states, like they're recruiting, just like we live in Texas. So Texas is not a battleground state, even though we have an opportunity to send crews, cruising somewhere. But if you live in a state that's not a battleground state, you can do telephoning into the battleground states. So they're recruiting people as we speak. We're also encouraging everyone to check your voter registration, because they've been trying to remove people from the rolls. So definitely check with your family members. Make sure that they are registered. Make sure they have, some people might even need a change of address. National Voter Registration Day is September 25th, but that's too late. We need to be doing that now, because the last day to register to vote is like October the 7th, but then you won't have time. Early vote starts around the 20-something of October here in Texas, but you won't have time to get your voter registration back, because they're going to be slow with the mail. So you want to register now. You want to get your change of address now. People, we just need to go to work now. Start talking about this election. Talk about the issues. I know that at some point you'll talk about Project 2025, which means...
what bothers me about Project 25? Why don't we put that in the trash? Because if we are on a winning streak, and if we win, we win, where does the Project 2025 go?
Well, it goes away until they find somebody. But let me just tell you, you need to make sure it is important. People died for the right to vote.
Exactly.
There's so much voter apathy out here. So you have to make it plain I think you have to make it plain to people why it's important. young single mothers need to understand that tax credits that they have for their children, that'll go away. Senior citizens need to know that Social Security is at stake. So guess what? January might be your last check.
Okay, okay. Let me make sure I got this. Hold on a second. Let me make sure I have to break this down a little bit. So you're talking about people that don't vote, don't see the importance of voting, don't have time, that apathy, apathy.
That is correct.
Okay, get rid of the apathy and keep Project 25 in the forefront. Just to put us on alert.
On the right track.
Okay,
right.
on the right track.
So that people will understand, how does it affect you? You know, it's kind of like they were saying, they've been saying all year long, you know, our democracy is at stake. You know, I always ask the question, so what does democracy mean? Right? So, but you know what? I think that Kamala Harris has it right. It's about freedom. See, people understand freedom. Freedom, people understand when your freedom, you know, to choose, to make a choice what you want to do with your body, when you can choose, you know, where you can stay, you know, being, you know, so much, your freedoms are getting ready to be taken away from you.
And you're holding on to this apathy. You're holding on to these rules that you have that I'm not going to vote. They're going to do what they want to do. I hate to even say that.
Well, that's why you have to make it plain to people why it's important for them to vote. Because if people feel like there's a need, they won't go and vote. And we'll lose this election. You know, and we have many people, you know, there's some people that kind of like what Trump says.
Yes, they do, but it's so far down the road and left, and it does not make any sense, Kathy. I'm talking to Kathy Nealy. I'm Esther Davis. You're watching us on Friday nights, listening to us on Friday nights. And we're talking about Kamala Harris winning this election and how you make the decisions. The whole decision, the whole process, according to my friends out in San Diego, one of the publishers there, is up to you. The ball's in your court. That's voters. We are the voters. We vote. You have to vote. And now Kathy is giving us another couple of things we have to do. Change your address on your voter registration card. Did you move last year? Did you move 6 months ago? Take a look at it and see, do I need to change my address? Don't have mama's address on there. That's another thing that was a problem 4 years ago. So let's get the right vehicles in place so that when we get to the polls, there are no obstacles, none at all. Early voting starts October 20th. I don't care if the Cowboys are playing or not. We've got to put all of this, everything aside. Early voting, that's what Kathy says. Kathy Nealy says October 20th. Let's talk a little bit about you because you've got to come back, Kathy. You've got to come back and talk to me. How long have you been doing this? That long, yeah.
Yeah, that long. Well, you know, but it's interesting. I started doing presidential advance in 1984, which is why I was a little hesitant at first, and that started traveling with Vice President Mondale. And you know, for that year, his vice president was Geraldine Ferrara.
That's right. It was a female that was nominated. Well, his vice president was the presidency.
Right.
Okay.
And I tell the story about, I'll never forget, Nashville, Tennessee. It was in the fall, must have been like late September.
Mm-hmm.
We were the town square trying to identify where we were going to host a rally. A little couple was walking by, and the lady stopped, and her husband stopped, and she said, "I love Walton Joan Mondale, but you know, a woman's place is in the home."
Oh, wow.
And I said to her, this was 1984.
1984.
I said to her, "Yes, ma'am." But
I have to ask you about Nelson Mandela before we get off the phone, because I do remember that time.
Mm-hmm.
And you had a direct part of that history and it still
Yes.
lingers and lives with you, I'm sure. So give us just a brief. We're going to talk about this again because Kathy Nealy is going to come back on probably the day show, which is Monday mornings, but she'll come back to Friday nights for sure. But her history and her life is just a storybook. It's absolutely excellent. Give me the story about Nelson Mandela.
Well, when Nelson Mandela was released from jail, he did a national tour here in the United States. I was in Oakland, California. That was my trip. I was in charge of his trip to Oakland, California, right before he was leaving, going back to Africa. So that's what we will talk about a little bit later.
Well, thank you so much. We have had an education, and this is education part 1 with Kathy Nealy on what are the next steps. What are the next steps to the White House for Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party? This information is extremely important. It's because we tend to think there's like a 1, 2, 3 step to the presidency. But we want to know we'll get to the Electoral College. I know I've had a lot of comments about that. We'll get to the Electoral College. But for right now, she's on the ballot. That happened today, Kathy?
Yes.
That happened today. Things are really moving fast here. And then the convention.
Let me just
Go
say
ahead,
this.
please.
She's our official nominee. We will make the final, that there will be a roll call that will take place at the convention, and then that's when it will become official.
I got to go, everybody. My time is up for Friday night. But Kathy Nealy has been my guest. She is a national delegate to the Democratic Convention, and it starts on October 19th in Chicago. So keep up with us. Keep up with all of the steps. Know how the entire process works. That is so very important. And then we'll talk about the next steps the next time. I'm always available. That's one of my biggest contribution to the shows. I am available on the telephone. You can send me an email and join our team. We're growing by leaps and bounds. Of course, on the day show, we're in 16 countries, and we want you to be a part of that big show. Okay, America. I got to say good night. Good night to you. And by the way, you really are the greatest audience in the world. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Kathy Nealy.
Thank you. God bless.
Bye-bye.